Hello, this is Heather of Shutterbug 101. Today we'll be going over the Panasonic point-and-shoot LX100 Mark II. Let's get started.
Come and fly away with me. We're rising, we're falling, we're making through.
The Panasonic LX100 Mark II is a high-end point-and-shoot camera with a micro four thirds 17 megapixel sensor. It can capture both RAW and JPEG images, has 49 autofocus points, touchscreen, and has a continuous drive at 11 frames per second. Now, although the lens has only a 3x zoom, it makes up for it by providing an aperture availability of 1.7 to 2.8. This camera also lacks a built-in flash, but has a hot shoe available to add a flash of good quality. This camera is great for those wanting a professional look to their images without needing the ability to zoom far out with multiple lenses. In today's walkthrough, we will explore the layout, buttons, and doors so you can familiarize yourself with your new camera. So going through our 101 on the LX100 Mark II, you can see that this is a pretty fair-sized point-and-shoot camera. It has a lot of glass on the front end, so it does come with a lens cap. There's quite a few little things just on the front here on the lens itself. As you can see on the lens, it does have an aperture ring. So the A, of course, is going to be auto, so you're letting the camera decide. Otherwise, you can choose between 1.7, 2.8, all the way to f16. So this is fairly unique, especially when it comes to point and shoot, to have that choice. This ring, of course, is going to be your zoom or manual focus, depending on what you have it set to, which is, of course, this little slider right here, indicated by the spot right here. This little slider, it'll allow you to choose autofocus, autofocus macro, or manual focus. So that's where that ring here is going to come into play. And then on the top here, you can see that we actually have our ratio sizes. So I want to say 4:3 is going to be the most popular ratio. It's going to be closer to a 5:7 or 8:10 ratio size, where it's going to be a little bit more square. You can make exactly square photos. So if you're an Instagrammer, this kind of helps prevent any crop on your photos. 16:9 is going to be closer to like a 8:12, 16:24, some of the wider angles. And 3:2 is going to be fairly close to 4:3. It's just a little bit square in an opposite way. So 4:3, I think, like I said, is probably going to be the most popular, but test out to see what you like. Here on the side, we do have a little door here, to where if we pull that up, you can see that we do have a HDMI port to where we can connect this straight to a television to see what's going on the screen, so you can do a slideshow of your pictures after you get back from a trip, and anything like that. And then on this side we have our charging cable port, so you actually charge the battery inside the camera on this guy. You can get a external charger for this battery, and what's nice about having this port, especially if you're a hiker or a traveler, is that you can actually use this port and use the camera at the same time. So if you're running low on battery and you have an extra battery pack that you can use a USB cable for, that'll allow you access to charge the battery while you're on the go. So it's a really nice little feature there. Of course, nothing on this side, so nothing special there. Going to the bottom of the camera, we can see here that we have our universal screw mount for our tripods. Under the door here, this is where we're going to find our battery and SD card slot. To remove the battery, you're just going to hit this little switch here. It's going to pop right up and out. And for the SD card, I don't have one in it now to demonstrate, but it is spring-loaded, so you would push down to pull that out. And then push down to click it back in. Do not try and pull it out without pushing it down first. You will break the mechanism there. Now going to the top of our camera, where we can see it is quite a layout in comparison to some of the simpler point and shoots, which is, pretty much this button and the zoom, and maybe an on button. Here we have a lot of options with our high-end point and shoot here. As you can see on the front, there is no built-in flash. There is no pop-up flash here. So if you do want to add a flash, you're going to have to go and buy one of the externals. I recommend something with an adjustable head. That way you get something of better quality. You know, let's face it, the built-in flashes are not all the best anyway. So they really saved you there. This is of course going to be your shutter speed dial. Again, this is going to be your A for auto. You're going to let the camera decide on that. Otherwise, you can choose shutter speeds all the way up to 1/4000th of a second, all the way down to, you know, 1 second and plus from there. To turn it to the T is going to be able to go like longer than 1 second, so 2 seconds, 5 seconds, all the way up to 60 seconds long for long exposures. Here, of course, you have your on and off button. Now, when we turn it off, it is going to suck that lens right back in. Turn it back on, it is going to extend out. You can both zoom with this dial and with this front lens switch here. So as you can see, we can zoom out there. It's going to extend the barrel a little bit. This, of course, is going to be our shutter button. So if you push halfway down, it is going to focus, and then you can take a picture. IA, this button right below your shutter button. Your IA mode is going to be your intelligent auto mode. So if you haven't quite learned your shutter speeds yet, you haven't quite learned your apertures, you know, this is kind of a camera where you're just like, I want to get into those things, but I'm really intimidated right now. IA is going to let the camera have full control. So it's going to essentially be your auto, and you just turn it on by pushing this button. So right now, indicated up at the top is just our P mode. That can change by changing certain settings. So if I change the shutter speed, it's going to go into S mode for shutter priority, versus if I change my front aperture ring, it's going to go A for aperture priority. Now if I push the IA button, it's going to kick into intelligent auto, and you'll see here if I adjust these dials here, it's going to go, hey, shutter speed's disabled, aperture's disabled because you're on intelligent auto. Let me do all the thinking for you. So it's up to you what mode you want to be on, but just so you know, to turn it on and off is just that button there. Function 1 button. Now this one is currently programmed for your 4K shooting mode. This mode allows you to take pictures at 30 frames per second. So to turn it on, because it is touchscreen, you just touch it to turn on. To turn it off, you just touch off right there. It is really helpful for animals, concerts, kids, you name it. It's you know, it'll definitely get you that like midway shot. Here we have our exposure dial. So as you can see, if we go up +1, it goes up rather bright. That's going back to regular here. If we go -1, go down here, it's actually going to make it quite dark. So you can actually adjust brightness and darkness just from this dial without changing any major settings, which is nice. That is a nice feature on here as well. Again, it's all laid out, so you know you don't have to do much inside the menu or anything like that, but we'll go over the menu here in a moment. Going over the back of the camera here, where a lot of the other tools are that you're gonna have to learn. Here we have a viewfinder on this point and shoot, can really help in those situations where it's a hard lighting environment. This, of course, is going to be our sensor. So when we bring our face close up to it, it's going to automatically kick onto the viewfinder here. When we bring our face away, it's going to kick right back onto the screen. If you wanted to change that, it's going to be your function 5 button, live viewfinder. You hit that once, it's going to go straight to the viewfinder, no more screen. Hit it again, it's going to go just to the screen, no more viewfinder, so that sensor does not work anymore. And then you hit it again, and that brings it back to auto. Okay. Here, of course, is going to be your diopter wheel. A lot of people don't know what this is. If you wear glasses, if you're nearsighted, farsighted, whatever it may be, this little wheel here can adjust to your specific eyes. So if the camera itself says the picture's in focus, but what you're seeing through here doesn't look like it's in focus, you can adjust this little wheel to help you out and match what the camera is seeing. Now, your function 4 button here is going to be your post focus button. That is going to essentially be where you can take the picture of something still, a landscape, a bed of flowers, whatever it may be, and then later on go back to the picture and pick your focus out on the screen. This can be a very cool feature if you're very indecisive about where you want your focus, or you're very precise and you don't have time to pick it out at that moment. Here is going to be your record button for video. Now you naturally can have any of these settings on. There's no right or wrong way to do it. It's just push to start, push to stop. That's it. This is going to be your auto focus / auto exposure lock. So if you were to point this out at someone and hold it down before taking the picture, what that would do is it would lock on autofocus, and it would lock in the light that it sees when you hold this button down. That way, if any of the light changes, your settings won't. Going down here to our function 2 button, this is going to be our quick menu. So when we hit this button, it's going to allow us to change everything on the top and bottom here. So going over this, the top here is going to be our photo style. This is essentially kind of like a filter you can put over it. So standard, vivid colors, natural colors, even monochrome, which is black and white. I prefer to do all of this in post-processing, so it's up to you if you want to play with it. Going over to the next thing here, it's going to be your video quality. This can shoot in 4K, so you do have that ability. You have your picture sizes, so right now it's set to JPEG, so it's giving you the choices on large, medium, or small JPEG. You always want large JPEG, never go smaller than that. And then you have which quality you want, if you want it just JPEG, if you want RAW and JPEG, or if you just want RAW. So I'm just going to set it to RAW for myself because, I'm a RAW shooter. And at that point, you can see that it just kind of skips over that top portion because I'm not shooting in JPEG anymore. It doesn't need to know what quality I want in that. Then, of course, you have your autofocus modes. So you're going to have AFS, AFF, AFC. So what these are is AFS is going to be autofocus single. Autofocus single is going to be for landscapes, people that are posing, for things that aren't moving, so the camera is going to lock in autofocus. AFC is autofocus continuous, where it's going to continually focus on your subject as it moves, so for animals, children's sports. And then AFF is going to be autofocus flexible, which is going to be letting the camera decide whether the subject is moving or if it is still, depending on the subject that you're taking, and it'll switch from one or the other. So AFF is a really good one to be on just for general purposes, but if you knew you were taking pictures of something still or moving, you may want to change it accordingly. And of course, if you wanted to get to manual focus, it would be that switch up here on the lens. Getting back into our quick menu here, this is going to be your autofocus area. So here you can choose from your 49 autofocus points, your custom multi, which is just kind of a general zone, your one area, so it's going to be a little bit bigger of an area than a specific spot, but a little bit smaller than your zone. And then this option over here is actually going to be a pinpoint, which is not available for some reason at the settings I currently have it at. You have tracking mode, and you also have face and eye detection. So if it does detect a face or an eye, it's going to focus there first. I'm going to have it set there, considering that I'm going to shoot my B-roll after this, and it'll be of a wedding, as you have seen already at the beginning of this video, and it should be very, very helpful for things like that. Multimetering, or metering in general, is just going to take the lighting of the photograph and give you a nice balance. So multimetering is considering the entire image and balancing for that 18% gray. Center weighted is going to consider whatever is in the center specifically. And spot is going to be wherever you want to meter for that light. So if I wanted to offset the camera over here a little bit, I didn't want it to be like direct center, then you can meter for the camera and then readjust and take the picture with spot. Then we have our ISO. So that is going to allow you to change the sensitivity to light. I choose auto personally because I don't want to have to worry about my ISO. I'd rather worry about the shutter speed and the aperture if I have to. And what you can do is you can actually set a limit to that ISO as well, which we should be able to do in the menu, so we'll go over that in a moment. And then of course we have our white balance. Now in older cameras we used to have to change the white balance accordingly. Cameras today are very good at determining what the white balance should be, so I would keep it an auto white balance unless you just feel like trying different things, but you always have to remember to change it back to auto white balance when you're done, or else you're going to get orange or yellow, or else you're going to get orange or blue people in your images. Going on here, the next button here is going to be our playback button. That's going to allow us to look back on pictures that we have taken. If we push up on our dial here where it says ISO, we can change ISO as well as we can in our quick menu. If you push to the left, that's going to be, again, your autofocus areas. Again, easily accessed in the quick menu. You can push to the right. Again, white balance, accessed in the quick menu. And then down, which is going to be your drive mode. So your drive mode is going to be, for instance, the one square here. If you press and hold the shutter button, it's going to take one picture. With burst mode, if you click and hold the button here, it's going to take a continuous amount of pictures. 4K burst mode is going to take 30 frames per second. You can also turn that on by the top FN1 button up here. Post focus, which is the same as our function 4 button, and timer, and also panoramic as well. So all of that is accessed through our drive mode menu here just by pushing down on this dial. Now our function 3 button, if we push right down here, right now it's just, it looks like it's set on like displaying what our effects are, so it's nothing really important. And then you have your display button. So this changes the layout of your screen, as you can see. I personally like this option here because I can see the battery level. I can see just some basic settings. Nothing that's really taking away from what I'm seeing. Now the whole point of the way the camera is laid out is to, again, avoid you, or is to keep you from having to go into the menu and missing a shot. So this quick menu up here, your function buttons, F1, F4, F3, all of those are going to be customizable. So say you were the type of person that goes, well, I'm not going to use that post focus mode. That just seems a little odd for me. You can go ahead and create a shortcut to do something else. If you found that you used one of the other custom menu options you use them often. So it's definitely something to keep in mind. So we're going to go through the menu here, which you get to it just by pushing the center button. And I'm going to skip over some things because a lot of these are listed on either your quick menu or on the outside of the camera. And then some of these you'll never change. So I'm just kind of going to skim through here. I'm going to touch on some more of the important settings. So just know that. So again, you can change your picture quality, which you can change in your quick menu. Autofocus area, quick menu. Photo style is your quick menu. Filter settings are very, very similar to photo style, so don't worry about that. I would keep that off. Color space, keep it on RGB. That's going to be the most regular setting that all computers are going to be able to read. Your metering mode, also accessed in your quick menu. Highlight, shadow, eye dynamic, eye resolution, all of those I would keep off because I believe in doing more post-production, so I have a little bit more control over how I want my pictures to look. I feel like those can really like make or break your photo, so I keep them off just to be safe. There's flash settings if you had a flash. Eye removal, which really only happens when you're using flash, so I wouldn't really worry about that. It doesn't hurt to have it on, but no point on having it on if you don't have a flash. ISO auto upper limit. You definitely want there to be a limit there. So ISO limit Just keep it on auto, like I said, unless you want to be really specific with your ISO. Minimum shutter speed, again, just keep it on auto. Long shutter noise reduction. I would have this off if you're shooting in RAW, but if you're shooting in JPEG, I'd say go for it. Diffraction compensation, I would keep off. I don't think that's something that you necessarily need. Stabilizer, definitely keep it on unless you have this guy on a tripod. You want to turn it off at that point. Burst rate, 4K photo, self timer, again, these are all accessed by pushing down on your wheel here. You can do time-lapse shots, stop-motion animation, change your panoramic settings. Silent mode, so if you were, say, at a wedding and you didn't want this camera to make any noise at all, you could go ahead and turn on that silent mode, and it should work just fine. However, it does turn off a lot of the features, so if you can help it, I would just keep it off. Bracketing, you can turn that on through the menu here. And also multi-exposure. So the next menu we're going over is the video menu here. You may not change a lot of these, especially if you're first starting out with this camera, but you can change your record format from MP4 to AVC HD, so depending if you're planning on playing it on a television or just putting it on a computer. Record quality, so HD versus 4K. Your focus mode, which we kind of went over, you can access that through your quick menu. Continue autofocus for video, you want to keep that on. Photo style, you could do black and white video if you wanted to with this. Filter settings, I keep it off. Metering mode, you can adjust where it's taking the light from. But highlight, shadow, eye dynamic, eye resolution, again, I'd keep them off. Keep your ISO on auto. Again, diffraction compensation off. Want to keep that stabilizer on, especially for video there. Picture mode and recording, so if you wanted, you could take pictures while you're recording. Sound record level display, so you can show the level that the sound is coming through. The mic here is going to be just on the top of the camera here. You can adjust the level by going up or lower, depending on how loud the person is or how close you are. And the wind noise canceller, which you can do just as like standard, which it works just fine. Here we have our custom menu here, so you can adjust exposures here, so anything from like your autofocus auto exposure lock, shutter autofocus, that's perfect. Half press release, keep that off. The reason I say that is because I've had a lot of people try that and they miss out on a lot of good pictures, because when you push halfway down it takes the picture without focusing right away. Quick autofocus, keep it off. Eye sensor autofocus, I would keep it on. Essentially when you bring this up to your eye, it starts to autofocus already. Pinpoint autofocus setting, I wouldn't worry about that. Autofocus assist lamp, that's essentially going to be this little guy right up here. It's going to shine an LED out if it has any trouble autofocusing, if it's too dark. Direct autofocus area, I would not worry about that. Focus release priority, yeah, good balance is fine. Let's see, focus switching for vertical, horizontal. Yeah, I mean, you can put that on, see how that works for you, especially if you're used to swapping it back to vertical or horizontal. Loop movement focus frame, I would keep that off. Autofocus area display, keep it on. Autofocus manual focus, so if you want to autofocus, then adjust your focus from there. Personally, I'd keep that off. Manual focus assist, so what it does is when you have that switch to manual focus, what it'll do is it'll do a picture-in-picture display where it'll zoom in a little bit to allow you to see that it's like, oh, okay, that really is in focus, because sometimes it can be very hard to see on this small screen here. Function button set, so if you want to customize your function buttons, you could do that also with your quick menu. IA button switch, if you want to switch that up. Control ring, you can switch that. So you have a lot of customization options here. Again, with your video button, zoom lever, you can change all of these things. Peaking histogram, all those I would keep off. Guideline is a nice option to have on if you have trouble composing your image, if you cut people's heads off on accident, if you want to get a good balance to your photo, guidelines can really help. But highlight, zebra pattern, just makes your everything a lot busier. I would keep them off. Live viewfinder / monitor display sets, depending on how you want the viewfinder and the back screen to look. Monitor info display, I would keep that on. Record area, remaining display, so you can change this from like how many minutes of video is left versus how many pictures are left. I like to do pictures personally, so that's fine for me. Lens position resume. I like to keep this off because it's a little frustrating. So say you zoom out all the way and then you turn off the camera. When you turn it back on again, it's going to zoom out all the way because that's what it's resuming. So I would keep it off. Lens retraction on, that's fine. Self timer auto off. So what's nice is this kind of has like a sleep mode. So if you leave it alone for a certain amount of time, it kind of shuts down. Helps save on battery. Face recognition. For me, it's a little creepy for the face recognition. I would keep that off. And then profile setup. Again, it's very similar to the face recognition. You can actually assign it to remember certain people that you're taking pictures of and make them a priority. And yeah, I kind of opt out on that one too. So it's really just kind of up to you. Going to the other wrench here, not the custom settings, but just the regular settings. This will allow you to access an online manual, set up a custom feature, clock set, world time. This will allow you to set a travel date. So if you do plan on going across the country, something like that where times are going to change, you can set a travel date so the camera can remember for you. You don't have to change it manually. This has a Wi-Fi option, so you can actually transfer photos from the camera itself to a cell phone or wireless device. You can also use your cell phone as a remote control for this camera, which is really cool. So if you have it set up on a tripod, you want to go and get in a group shot, you can use your phone as a remote. You can also use Bluetooth with this camera, which is cool. Wireless connection lamp, so it'll turn on a little light letting you know it's connecting wirelessly. You can turn the beep on and off. Economy, which just saves the battery. You can change the display and the monitor for the luminance and in the viewfinder as well. Settings for the eye sensor, TV connection, language, version display. So if you wanted to check to see if the firmware was up to date, that's where you would find that. Number reset for the files, for the pictures, like resetting the miles on your car. And then like reset. So if you ran into a problem where maybe you let someone take pictures on it and all of a sudden the camera started doing something funky and you didn't know what happened, you can actually reset it, and hopefully that'll fix the problem. Reset network settings for Wi-Fi issues. Level gauge adjust, don't worry about that. Keep the demo mode off. And format, something very important to know. So if you have ever had a camera previously and maybe you didn't know how to format before, this is definitely important. So when you go and shoot an event, you go on vacation, whatever it may be, when you get home, you go on the computer, you back up all your pictures to your computer, and you make sure they're on your computer after you take the card out, and you're ready to start over. You're ready to use the card again. At that point, so you make sure it's on your computer, especially after you take the SD card out, and you're ready to use it again, you're ready to start new. What you want to do is, instead of putting it in the camera and deleting it with the trash can here, is you want to go through and format it. And the reason you want to format your card is because it's going to completely reset the card to how you purchased it. It's going to delete all your files permanently. When you go through and use the little trash can on your images, it essentially puts it into a temporary recycling bin. And even though you can't see the file, the data still takes up room on the card. So if you just go through time of just taking pictures and deleting it with a trash can over and over and over again, that recycling bin can get full and it can cause corruption in future images. So to save your future images and from you being disappointed at all in the future, every so often just go ahead and make sure that you reformat your card. go ahead and getting into these last couple menus here. There's a My Menu setting, which will allow you to customize and put certain things in these tabs here to your own little menu, so you don't have to scroll through everything. And then, of course, you have your playback menu, which is, pretty self-explanatory. You can put a slideshow on. You can protect your images. You can rate it with stars. You can do light composition, retouching. You can do resizing, cropping, rotating. All of these I would personally just do in post-processing. I wouldn't do any of it inside the camera itself. And then like down here you have like a delete confirmation. You always want to put no first in case you accidentally double tap and delete a photo that you really didn't want to delete. That pretty much covers the LX100 Mark II. Again, once you learn these dials and buttons and you start playing with it for yourself, it does become rather simple to use. It's a great quality point and shoot. It's a lot of fun, and especially if you don't need that zoom ability, you're just taking general pictures around you and you want them to look high quality, this is the camera for you. If I didn't answer any specific questions about this camera, or you have a specific camera that you would like me to do a walkthrough of, please let me know in the comments below. Until then, keep your eye open for inspiration, Shutterbugs. Bye!